declaring that we are live. Wednesday Night Golf Show is back in business. We had a little hiatus, week off. Turkish Airlines was in our life. Now we're back in business. The PGA Tour is back. It's not in America, but it's close enough. We are at Mayakoba OHL Classic out in Mexico, the Ciosimo.com show. Myself, Ben Raza, here with Jason Roslin, as I always am. Are you excited to have some PGA Tour back in our lives?
I certainly am. I will say, and this was one of the first notes that I sent over to you, I want to just grovel or be sad together about Matthias Schwab.
Every week. Every week. But he just can't win.
Like, what more does he have to do to win? Birdie the 18th hole. I mean, that's really it. I say that because if we had a show last week, we both probably would have been pounding the table to play him, so people probably would have loved us. But as such, we don't have to worry about the Euro Tour unless we want to. We'll touch on it at the very, very end. DraftKings has put up a 5K to first for the net bank, so we'll just give maybe 2 picks or something like that at the end. But we've got down in Mexico this week. I'm really excited. I love this golf course. I know it sounds weird. It's my favorite event of the fall swing. Right, so it's the most we can get excited for. And I know that Fantasy Draft has us excited for some football stuff,
right? Yeah, they are. As we talk about our sponsor, we want to talk about them because they are doing really exciting things. It's rake-free daily fantasy over at Fantasy Draft, which I say every week, 100% of the entry fees go into those prize pools. We've had a lot of examples that just show it's more money to the bottom. It's still really robust prizes up top. That's where the rake isn't taken out, and it really makes a difference. So if you haven't signed up and you want to, promo code AWESOMO over there. It will get you a free trial. We really suggest it. You know, they're running big things with the Hooters main event over in the NFL. They have the other sports, and when golf really gets going again, they have that cool format where you drop a guy. So go check that out. I am interested, though. You like this course, do you? El Chameleon or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I do. And so I told the really quick story about this area and me on my pod this week. If you didn't hear it, basically, a lot of cruises go into Cozumel, and Cozumel's a little island off of Playa del Carmen where this golf course is. And I took a ferry ride from Cozumel to where this golf course is, and it was the worst experience of my life. It was the worst hour I've ever spent. Over 85% of the people on the boat got seasick. They were passing around bags, if you will. So how did I get over that feeling? Well, it's because this resort in this course is beautiful. I mean, I just remember the first year watching it. I was probably 100 miles north of where you are right now, sitting freezing my butt off in Rhode Island. And there's Graham McDowell with a Corona, just shot 66, sitting in the hot tub watching everybody else play golf. That just kind of gave me the mindset of this tournament, if you will. And a few things have happened kind of like that. Zach Johnson was, I think they were on the balcony drinking last year as other players came in. So it kind of just has that, Mexico vibe, if you will, to steal a line from James Taylor.
There you go. Like the song. It's, it's got that resort feel. It's got a laid back atmosphere. It's a swing season event. And we can't really quantify that, but it is, kind of a warm up for a lot of guys. And this is the tough part about this year. Kuchar, guys like that, they haven't played a lot. Then we've had some guys, the Asian swing, that have got some reps in over there. But overall, we're kind of flying blind. That's what we're here for, though. We're going to break it down as best we can. First thing we got to get to, of course, will there be any Toucan Kuchar drama at all this week? Or you think that will be kind of in the past?
Well, I can tell you what would get rid of all of that right away, and it would be to go out and shoot 64 and have the first round lead. That would probably alleviate a little of the angst that Kuchar has, but it may thrust him right back into the limelight of, oh, well, here's Matt Kuchar yet again. I wonder if he's going to do the right thing this time. I believe he has his regular caddy, so I'm sure his regular caddy will get his regular pay. I'm interested to see a little bit of the local reaction. I feel like if he was going to get hated on, we would have already heard it, unless he's literally hasn't shown up to the course and will show up for a seat time on Thursday and has been MIA. I do not know that. No one has shown any pictures of him or anything. So yeah, I'll be interested to see just the local reception because it became such a big story in that Cancun area.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what we can get. Obviously, it's not the strongest field in the world, but we do have some guys, and at least it's a course that we have seen. So we can talk. It's a shorter hitters track, in my opinion, par 71, but you don't have as many chances to really dismantle it with the driver. It's not to say that guys, you know, with length can't excel here, but we have seen plenty of short hitters, the Russell Knoxes of the world, be just fine. Now, the weather, is that something you want to dive into right off the top? Because you have been on top of that. It is soaked down there, is it not?
Yeah, so DA Points put out a tweet or an Instagram, one of those two, earlier on in the week, where he decided he was going to go out and try and practice, and he was waiting on the second tee for over a half hour, which one of our friends in the industry, Drew Matthews, came back and was like, couple of pointers for DA. I should have checked the radar before going out. And anyways, however, it doesn't look like it's going to be very windy. So I don't know if we're going to get stoppage of play. Of course, if there's any electricity at all, we're of course going to get it. But with no wind, it doesn't look like to me that there's an advantage in either wave. I know that from a golfer's perspective, soft and wet can really help those guys that put the ball in the fairway because they're going to be able to get the ball in their hands and lift clean in place. Very, of course, important rule for these guys. And soft and wet can end up playing much easier because the greens don't release and they just stop right where you hit it. So I really do think it puts a really importance on driving accuracy, even more so than we normally see with this golf course.
That's the interesting thing that I kind of took away the same vantage points that it kind of puts a premium on what we were already putting a premium on,
Yep.
which is you got to keep it in the fairway here. You got to attack these pins. Now you really got to keep it in the fairway because of lift clean in place. And if you attack the pins now, you can flag hunt all day because there's not going to be a ton of roll. They're not going to be firm. So it's just that much more tailored to the guys that I think naturally set up pretty well. And, the greens were already slow, so they're going to be really slow.
They're going to be running at like a 10 and a 10 and a half for those stimp meter kings and queens that watch our show. And for those that don't, it's basically average to slow. Like, if you play on your local golf course that's not a muni, you're probably playing on something close to a 9, 9.5, maybe even a 10 on good Saturday mornings. These greens are not going to be fast this week at all.
There you go.
Hey, does that help our guy Griot?
Well, of course, anything to justify playing him. I mentioned that yesterday, that maybe, in my opinion, bizarro green situations kind of negate the putting advantage. It kind of mitigates it. And we obviously, the goal with Griot is to limit the putting advantage as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't mean to jump all the way down to 8,900 there at Emiliano Grillo, but let's go ahead and start right off at the top. I wrote about it in one of my articles this week, and it seems to be a pretty big decision. You can stack both of them. 2 weeks ago when you and I talked, we said, should we stack Xander and Rory? Do you think we need to stack Victor Hovland and Tony Finau, who's both projected to be 1 and 2 on the ownership board this week? Or are you favoring one of the over the other?
So it's interesting. I'm going to go against the grain with this answer. I actually like stacking them, but what I like more is not playing either of them.
Okay.
So I like the kind of build. If you want to go for it, I think you probably should with both of them. They're very similar games. They're aggressive drivers. Two of, certainly, I think no one could argue, two of the best in the field. No problem there. But I actually like going against the grain. I'm trying to get away from the top in general. I don't like Kuchar. Jason Day is the one guy I'm pretty interested in. Played okay over in Asia, coming here after a long hiatus. Just doesn't usually play. Mayakoba. And then we'll get into the balance builds, which have a lot of merit. But to pass it back to you, I know you really do like Hovland. Do you have a preference, him over Finau, or are you interested in both?
I think in a one-off, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Jason, I got one spot. I filled out all my other 5 guys. I filled it out the way that I could either get Hovland or Finau. For me, it's Hovland. And the reason why is because in the small sample size that we've had, in the last 10 tournaments for each of these guys, roughly, it wasn't exactly 10 tournaments. I think Hovland played in 1 or 2 more. Hovland's got 8 top 15s and Finau only has 4. So if it's right now, I know Finau had the back-to-back top 10s. What was it? The first, the CJ Cup, and then the one before the CJ Cup that he played in. So it's not like Finau's out of form by any stretch. I actually just think Hovland it's more fairways. And I think that this week, that'll help him beat Finau specifically. But, again, we're not getting a discount with Victor Hovland. He's 11,200 in a field, that this is not supposed – he's not supposed to be the odds-on favorite to win the tournament yet, is he? I mean –
this is a weird field. The win equity is really dispersed. There's not a polarizing, when we go to these, even at WGCs, when you got like JT and Rory, like up top there, it's such a step one is surviving them if you don't play them because they can just win tournaments so frequently relative to the rest of the golfers. Here, like I'm not too worried about Kuchar just winning it and ending my week. I'm really not.
Yep.
So it opens it up to those next tiers. If Hovland puts it in the fairway, of course, he's going to be able to just go nuts. He's going to have to make more putts, as most guys will. But for me, yeah, I think you can get away with more often than not actually omitting most of these guys.
Yeah, and the one we haven't mentioned, you mentioned Day. We mentioned Kuchar, obviously. Kuchar is going to be the lowest owned. I think that's pretty clear. Mm-hmm. The one we haven't talked about is Billy Horschel, who we did talk about 2 weeks ago at the WGC, citing that he had just come off a bad putting week. So Billy Horschel, 10-2, says he loves the resort. I think that was probably more of an advertisement that the Fairmont Mayakoba hotel there probably maybe gave him an upgrade to a suite to send out that tweet or something like that. But by all means, he says he likes the golf course. It would seem like it would fit his style of play. He doesn't really hit the ball that far. He kind of plots his way around and putts well. 10-2 for Billy Horschel, though, is kind of expensive.
Yeah, that's the one. You can get away with it in a field like this, no problem. I get that. Pretty premium, though. Now, he has a good formula, as you said. He can keep it in the fairway. Even in the recent stats, we don't have strokes gained, but he hit plenty of greens, and he's been, he can get hot with the putter. We know that. So I get it. There is a little sticker shock relative to the field. It's easily justifiable, but I still think you can work down to the next tier and get some savings with guys just as good.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we do have greens. He hit 68% of his greens in China, so not bad. I mean, no. In the golfers that are playing in this field that played there, he's in the top 7 or 8. So by all stretch, he played pretty well. So interesting, Billy Horschel coming in around 10 to 15% somewhere in that ownership. So I heard you say if you fade both of them, and it looks like you're going to fade the other guys up here, looks like you're going to probably start with Joaquin Niemann, or are you going even lower?
So this is, to me, the theme of the week that I found most interesting is most of the guys up top in a vacuum don't really fit this course. Like Niemann is another strong driver. Wise is a really strong driver. It's not to say they can't do it, but again, guys like Russell, Russell Knox has the absurd course history, which you were paying for. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Scotty Scheffler, who is to me, the hardest guy maybe to project in this whole thing. He's a very safe and normal play. I get that. But we don't really know the profile of what he can do. Now, he was really good in Bermuda, which is a coastal track, but he's playing against a field that's very, very weak, relative to what he's going to see here. So Scheffler's someone, I don't think this is a great course for him, but at the same time, I don't think it's a course where I really worry about him at 9,100.
Yeah, and I think we're still trying to figure out maybe a little bit of who Scotty is. We don't know if he's prefers courses that have wide fairways and are real scoring courses. The Bermuda course was, I think, 72 or 7,300 yards. It was obviously his best finish. And if the Bermuda course is anything like this week, yeah, sure, he could be totally in play. We've seen him obviously play with at least the guys that are in this field. So I think Scheffler is really interesting this week. One we skipped over, and all these guys are kind of grouped together in terms of ownership. You mentioned Niemann. We mentioned Grillo earlier. The other one is the Mexican native Abraham Ancer, who is coming off probably the best ball striking week of anyone that played in the WC China that are playing this week, hitting 70% of both fairways and greens, or a little bit over on both. Obviously, the ball striking is there. The putting wasn't. The putter finally woke up. Does it stay hot? And could he actually win this week?
Definitely. Again, this is a week. It's very wide open. I feel like a lot of people were waiting for that. He was a name that we got, I feel like, in almost every show leading up to the WGC, where it was like, I know he's not playing well, but I like the profile. And really, what it was, we've talked about this. The driver, which is his best club, had not been up to par, and it obviously returned a bit over in China. He rebounds with that massive showing. Now he comes here, much easier field. So if he can continue that tee to green, there's no reason to be nervous about clicking him in either type of build. As your second man in an aggressive build and as a balanced build, he can be with a number of guys in that mid range.
Yeah, absolutely. Scotty Scheffler, I have do you have course history right in front of you? I think he might have. Did he play here as an amateur and come in 31st?
Let's go to videotape. I don't see that, but what I'm looking at may not have it. So okay. Maybe, but Scheffler's a guy again. I think the point that I took with him is what you already mentioned. It's a little early. He doesn't have like many years of heritage and Valspar and this and other short tracks, Colonial. So we're kind of inferring. Now, we can tell that clearly this dude off the tee is serious business, and on the greens, he might be getting lessons from Griot so far, and that's not good. But other than that, it's someone I feel pretty comfortable in most formats with. I know we haven't mentioned him yet, and I'm sure we will, but I will just say that Kevin Kisner is one of the more intriguing names on this entire range for me.
He's going to be the guy that I think surprises everybody in terms of ownership coming out tomorrow. I think there's always a couple, right, that kind of surprises a bit. And he, right off the bat, and I think obviously he's been in the news. He's the biggest, at this point, considered one of the biggest snubs for that last Ryder Cup spot or President's Cup spot. And instantly, when he came out at 40-1, a lot of the people, at least in the DFS Twitter world, DFS golf Twitter world, were jumping all over that. And normally, when that happens, the ownership kind of follows it. He's reasonably priced, so I am concerned a little bit about that. And the numbers didn't look. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he didn't play great in Asia.
So it's a really interesting situation to monitor because, in addition to not being great, and I can attest to that because I bought during the Asian swing and it didn't really pan out. His course history here is horrible. But that is something that actually doesn't bother me just because the profile of who he is, I think, translates really well for this course. Get the irons in his hand, not going to need to kill it with distance. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't do a double take when I saw that course history because you look at a guy like Russell Knox and you see 3 straight top 10s, including a runner-up. That makes sense. This is a great track for a guy like that. Kisner, to me, should fit a similar build. Ches, another one, those type of players. Kisner certainly hasn't cooperated so far at this event.
Yeah, it looks like I am seeing now still Scotty Scheffler in 2016 did play here. I don't know. I'm looking at it now. Maybe I got to look at the 2015. Anyways, the only reason why I bring that up is just because I like a course that is obviously you don't need drive. You really can't use driving distance. So I feel like some of these players that have played it once already have a little bit of an advantage because they know where, at least a little bit where to aim and stuff like that. So,
oh yeah, especially if you're a one-trick pony, I think that's really important. Like Rahm is a bad example because he's so good, but if you have that mentality, this is one of the few courses you just can't, like Heritage, you actually can overpower this course. It doesn't work. So you're going to have to find a new way to score. And if you just go with the same, I'm going to do what I normally do, I don't think that's going to be successful for some of these longer hitters.
So let's talk about Aaron Wise for a second, again, because I'm noticing here, he had a top 10 here last year.
He was good in Bermuda, really good.
He was really good in Bermuda with his irons, and that's what we've been waiting for him to pick up on. If you look at his strokes gained and you go into the tape, you'll see anybody that goes and looks will see that he's been struggling only with his irons. Off the tee has been great. His putter has even been pretty good. Specifically at the Shriners, he gained 3 strokes putting and lost. Well, he actually probably missed the cut there.
Yes.
I would assume, So he lost almost 3 strokes in 2 rounds. So the fact that I see him in the top 10 in greens and regulation at the Bermuda, definitely intrigued. A top 10 here last year also intrigues me. And if people are not going to play him, if he's going to come in at 10% or under, I think it's a really interesting pivot, especially if everyone's going to go Kevin Kisner.
Yeah, I think he's in a good spot too. He's right next to Russell Knox, who has the course history,
Yep.
and with limited strokes gain data, people I think lean too much on course history because it's like, well, I don't have anything else. Aaron Wise is a guy I think we all know. I really like him in life. It's going to be another one similar to Neiman. Can he mitigate what won't be advantages off the tee? Because that's how he usually separates. If he can keep the irons going, we know he can putt well enough to compete. He's an Oregon guy that can't hurt you. Those Ducks, don't sleep on them in the college football playoff. They're just lurking. That's another show for another time. But I think he makes an interesting build. Once again, I don't think it's crazy to start with a guy like that. I really don't. You're going to sacrifice some win equity, but boy, it's not as much as you normally would when you're starting in the mid nines.
Yeah, definitely. One guy we haven't mentioned in the nines that just won real recently. Another 83 points a couple of weeks ago, even though it looks like maybe the form was tailing off, but then he comes in the top 20 at the Bermuda, and I'm talking about Lanto Griffin. Guy has never missed a cut, it feels like, on the PGA Tour. What do we do with Lanto?
Just a cut. Are you kidding me? He never comes not in the top 20.
Top 20. It's insane. It's totally insane.
Yeah, he's a dangerous man. Now I could if I wanted to end Lanto by playing him because I don't think I've played him during this streak. Now if we want
let's go ahead and have you play.
I could click the number. The guy has been impressive. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
His ability. At first, I kind of dismissed him because I thought it was overblown with the putter. And truth be told, a ton of it is. I mean, he's gaining 4, 5, 6, 7 strokes putting over 4 rounds. But boy, lately it's just been a clinic across the board. His ball striking has been pristine in addition to the putting, and that's how you break through. So can he keep that up? I mean, I have no evidence to say that it won't. I will just say we do have a decent body of work before that, and nothing even remotely close to this. So it's not like this guy's never going to regress. Off a win, I was impressed with the Bermuda. He played fine. It's just probably a little too pricey for me when we have guys like Griot, Kisner, even working down, Ches, Denny McCarthy, JT Poston. These are names that I'm more interested in than Lanto.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most, I'm not going to say mind-boggling, but definitely one of the more crazier ascents that I have seen of a golfer that we really just didn't hear much about. Even last year on the Korn Ferry Tour, it's not like he was going up and pulling Scotty Scheffler type numbers. He had a good year, good enough to obviously get the promotion back to the PGA Tour. So yeah, just really interesting. All right, a couple names in the 8K range before we move into our Make Your Cut segment, which I'm glad is back this week. Should be a real fun one. Denny McCarthy, he's a guy that when we had Alex on actually a couple of weeks ago, our buddy Alex Osmo, he mentioned that he thought Denny McCarthy has vastly underperformed his actual overall ability. 3 straight top 15s now, so maybe he's starting to find things. He thinks he's the best putter in the world. He's said that a couple of times.
He probably is. That guy.
He might be. It's insane. You playing him this week?
I have some interest there, and
I do too.
He's one of the few guys that I actually do agree that putting you can never straight rely on it because it is we've talked a million times. It's certainly high variance. That guy is as elite as you're going to get though. You can't quantify. I mean, you can quantify it, but when you can gain 8 strokes putting, you don't need to be a great ball striker. You just need to hit the green at any capacity, and then you just make it. So his abilities, he has shown with even average tee to green game, he can bail himself out. And we've seen that with this run, as you mentioned, 4 straight top 20s, 9th and 9th at Shriners in the Houston. I don't see any reason why he can't continue with this formula. It's a little atypical. Is it the prototypical thing I like to see? No, of course not. But in a field like this, no problem, especially if it's lift clean in place, because all he has to do is really attack the pins. The GIRs across the board should be up with these greens really holding everything.
Which, if it becomes a putting contest, this is the guy we want, right? 100%. So obviously we've seen a few other guys, obviously most notably Spieth, kind of do it this way. But just a note on McCarthy. 13 times this year, he's averaged at least 1 stroke gained per round putting. It's insane. Now, I didn't count if he missed cuts or anything. So that's why I said just per round. 13 tournament. It's just almost unheard of. It's done by very few and far between. So what's nice about that is you have something to fall back on, right? If he's not playing that well, you know that if he's got a 15-footer to make the cut, he's one of the few guys that you would really want to be punting it. So at 8,400, where I was going with that, sorry, a little long-winded. At 8,400, I think it's a very reasonable price to go in for a guy that we know is not the best ball striker. The most strokes gained ball striking per round that he's had all year has been, oh, Jesus, wow, it's that bad. 0.91, which was at Houston. Yeah, it's really that bad. But if it comes around that 1 week, the ball striking, he could win. Definitely. Conversely, if the putting comes around for Griot, he could win. So does that make you want to play just both of them and ride this out and hopefully catch fire on both of them in 1 week?
So I think, in a way, someone like Denny McCarthy and Griot are very similar while being as totally different. Opposite. Like Denny McCarthy doesn't annoy me at all. Griot, I have multiple severe issues because of him. But in a way, they both have a clear, super, super reliable part of their game, and then they have a leak in their game. And you know that if it's going to regress positively, they're going to be in contention, and vice versa. If Denny McCarthy only gains a couple strokes putting over the 4 rounds, probably not the best week for him because he just doesn't have it. And same with Griot, his ball striking needs to be top notch just to give him a chance. So guys like that, I'm always going to have interest in because we know that the upside is there. I will say though that Griot more and more lately, it really hasn't even knocked on the door. Whereas I give someone like Denny McCarthy, it really does seem like he's a solid ball striking week away from contending. Whereas Griot, I am sometimes even questioning, what are we going to get if he gains a couple strokes putting? Because right now he's not doing anything.
Yeah, it's maybe more of, and this is for people that have read my Pinnacle article of the week, and Ben puts one out as well. And if you're not premium members, this is where we put in all our entire plays and our allocations to the guys. This is one of the definite benefits for an Awesome Plus member. I'll give you the one tidbit I put on Griot. It's the fear of missing out. For me, it's the fear of missing out because I've been on him for so long that if the 1 week I decide to come off of him, go from 20% allocation to 5%, it's the week he catches fire with putting and ends up in the top 8, and that's what we need out of him at this price.
Listen, I mean, with him, you know what you're getting. You're going to get reliable ball striking right now, especially recently, and we don't have the stats over in Asia. His putting from strokes gained data has been non-competitive to the point where it doesn't really matter what he's doing. He's not going to get you where you need to go.
Yep.
But that's not nobody can lose 4 or 5 strokes putting every week. I know it feels that way, but that's not going to happen. So at a course that clearly suits his game, his course history is fantastic here, and it should be.
Yep.
This is a spot where even though he's frustrating, I definitely have interest in Griot.
All right, so as we move down, we've got a couple of other names. I think it's absolutely, totally clear that no one wants to play Cameron Champ. We talked about why, of course, because he's a bomber. But this was in his stretch last year where he was still good at golf and, like Aaron Wise, ended up in the top 10. Are you interested in just playing in this scenario? Are you interested in playing like a Wise Champ lineup and saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to take driving distance and say, let's go contrarian. It is super wet. If these guys put it in the fairway, they're going to be 50 yards by everybody else.
So I absolutely, one of another thing that is great about Awesome Plus is Slack, obviously. It's great to talk about that. And I just held office hours and we had some really sharp people in there. Someone asked me about that, and I always advocate in certain lineups you want to correlate. And that is a way to do it. So if I don't know for me if Cameron Champ is the guy, but he would be in the pool. You've got Hovlands, Finaus, Aaron Wise, looking way down. I know I'm jumping around a bit, like Johnny Vegas types, where it's just you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put a premium on driving distance. Nobody's really going to do that. If I get it right and that correlates stronger, I have a team pulling the same way together. If I get it wrong, the team is probably going to be awful, but who cares? that's what you're going for an all or nothing in these large field tournaments.
And that's the point. We're not suggesting to do this in a cash format and throw in Champ and Wise and cash. This is strictly for that $8 175K guaranteed, 50K to first. That's where we're suggesting, because it's unlikely that A, most people are going to have Champ, and B, put Champ and Wise and Johnny Vegas together. Put the driving distance guys, because it's been very clear. There's been more people than obviously just you and I that said it. I saw a tweet from Data Golf that actually put the statistical regressional analysis of driving accuracy based on finishing position, and this was the complete outlier. So there's no doubt that DA over DD here. However, the lift, clean, and place factor definitely comes into play if they can keep it in the fairway. So the next thing I want to talk about kind of fits right in the middle of that mode. He hits it the distance that I think you and I would like for this course. Course history is good, 3 straight top 35s. But it's a guy that you and I struggle with a little bit. It's JT Poston.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's a guy, I guess a project with me that him and Fratelli were guys that I was playing, I think, a little earlier than most. Yep. And then they didn't win at the right time for me, but then they did break through. JT Poston is someone I have interest in once again. He won at Wyndham to kind of close last year and has followed up with some impressive showings. It hasn't been fantastic, but at the same time, it's not like he fell off the wagon after the win. Played in Asia, and it's someone right now that the game is pretty solid across the board. It's a little mix and match where he's not crushing it anywhere, but the irons have been better. We know he can putt. Do you like him as well this week, or are you kind of skeptical?
No, I do, and he put up a good amount of points as well. He put up 81.5 points, which was good enough for a top 20 at the WGC. Had a couple of eagles in there as well. Went on a couple of runs. He was a big part of my one team that did very well there. So I played him, but he was 6,600, 6,800. I get it that strength of field is a lot less now. 8,200, it's not bad. It's not too much of a sticker shock, but this is where I got into trouble playing him at the John Deere. Mm-hmm. He was at 8.3K, coming in good form on a course that he had great course history on. And I said, okay, this is a smash spot, and he missed the cut. A little nervous about the missed cut aspect, even though he doesn't have one here. He's not a core play for me, but he's pretty close.
Yeah, it's a range that, and I think this is a general theme for this tournament with ownership specifically. I think it's going to be pretty dispersed because there's just a lot of guys in a lot of ranges that are going to earn some interest. But he's right next to Pat Perez, who is the god of whatever surface this is on the greens. I'm not even going to attempt to say it, but it's whatever they use at the CIMB and a couple other places.
Yeah, Seashore Pass Fallon.
Yeah, whatever that is. Sure, why not?
The grass type. Yeah, I got you.
Pat Perez loves that. Harris English is playing ridiculous. He's just out of his mind right now.
Oh, yeah, we didn't mention him. I wanted to bring him up.
And he's right below Poston. So I have a feeling ownership is going to be pretty mitigated. And I do lean to JT against guys like that. Not that there's anything wrong with either of them. I might have a sprinkle, but I think they're going to be more on the minds of people for some pretty obvious connections to this course.
This course will certainly be indicative as to where Harris English game really is, if it's really back to close to major winning type events. Obviously he hasn't even won a regular event, so I can't say that. But he's played fantastic. However, since 2016, miscut, 68th here. So obviously it doesn't necessarily fit his game, but he hasn't been in good form over the last 4 years. So I'm trying not to use that too much. But at 8,000, he's going to be pretty chalky. He's also going to be relatively chalky with Brian Harman, who also struggles here, but shouldn't, coming in off okay form. But Brian Harman and Harris English, are they fades for you? Because they are for me at this point.
Harris English, like I said, I understand the play, but there's just too many other guys for me that I think are longer term. I know he's found something here clearly, and this will be a good test. You're right. Maybe he can keep it going. It's really just around the green holding him back. But I just have other, interests, whether it's Poston, Fratelli, Sabatini is right there. Harman, I'm definitely, if I had to pick him or Harris English, it would be Harman for me. It's a guy, I like the course, the lefty can get hot with the putter, but he is someone, and I'm not going to take one event and hold it super against him. I really like the spot for him at Houston, and he was horrible. The irons just went completely gone. He had gained 6.2 at Sanderson, 4.1 at Shriners, and then he lost 3.3 strokes gained on the approach at Houston. So Harman is someone right now, I'm not sure where the game is at. I don't mind the upside, but in a mid range with so many other options, I don't think you really need to force it with him.
So a couple of those other mid-priced options. Carlos Ortiz is, I believe, from Mexico as well, and Sebastian Munoz is, I think, from Argentina. So a couple of Central and South Americans next. Any interest in either of those two friends? North Texas. Oh, come on, help me. They're Mean Green. Are they the Mean Green at North Texas?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, North definitely. Yeah, they're the Mean Green. Pretty good in both sports right now.
Yeah, so both of them are from North Texas. What do you make of them? 7,700. They've come down in price. I have some interest. I'll play them in the $8 for sure.
So these are guys that I think Sabatini's the known commodity here. The game's been going on. Going to garner the most ownership. Harman as well. I don't mind either of these guys in that type of setting. Their games are somewhat erratic, and I embrace that in certainly an MME format. Now, honing in and being like, you know what, Carlos Ortiz is the guy for me this week, I don't see that personally. I really don't. He fits a larger portfolio just because we've seen at times his irons get hot, his putter get hot, his driving get hot. If you put it all together, of course, you can compete, similar to Fratelli in that notion. Whereas other guys, it's like, all right, well, I know what they're going to do. The range of outcomes is pretty limited. So that's really where I'm at with those guys.
One of my favorite segments that we have done for a while, and we obviously, with it being a no cut the last 3 weeks, last 4 weeks really, if you include the Euro Tour event last week. So we haven't been able to do it, but I'm bringing it back this week. I'm going to start it off with a guy that has been hanging around the cut line all fall, but believe it or not, has not shot a score above 70. And it's Zach Johnson. Is he going to play the weekend here?
Oh boy, old ZJ. Man, I don't know what to make of him. It's just been blah, honestly. Like I really, he's someone I used to say I get the merit in cash and I'm not going to go there in tournaments. But lately he's not even making many cuts, and I know the cut rules certainly have been a little tougher. To me, I'm going to tell you right there, I'm going to one-off it with Harry Higgs, who played really well in Bermuda, a Korn Ferry graduate that I know you know more about than I do, but it's a guy that I've been pretty impressed with from what I've seen so far, with some boom bust to his game.
One more note on Zach Johnson. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that the stat that I told you was right, and he's played 8 rounds of golf in this fall swing. He's only made 1 cut in 3 appearances, but he's shot no worse than 71, which was at the Sanderson where he actually made the cut. So I think that form seems to be kind of close for Zach Johnson. And at a course where he's going to be able to get his hands on it, I actually am a little interested. I'm not going to lie. It's been a little while. He's not a core play like you very much just mentioned about, Ortiz or Harman being kind of the guy to go to. It's not. And I totally agree. Mm-hmm. But do I like Johnson in certain instances? Yes. Harry Higgs, a grinder, definitely like him as well to make the cut this week. How about Kevin Streelman? He got really popular. Kind of faded off now. Is he done for a little while?
Yeah, I've seen his name floating around, and I get it. You get some short irons in his hand. That's someone we've kind of identified here and there, but his results, and you could justify it 2 ways. You could say, wow, he's got a 4th and a 12th in 2 out of his last 5. That's great. It's packaged with 2 missed cuts and a 74th in a small field. To me, I'm not really there with what I'm seeing. I'm having trouble identifying exactly why he played well where he did and why he's not. So with the game not in a great spot, nothing really stands out for me. I'd rather play Russell Henley if I had to.
Yeah, next guy on the list, 4 for 4 and made cuts. But I loved him at Houston. Everything lined up. Everything looked to be in good form, and he totally let me down. So is that a sign of going the other way, or has this 3-week or so break revitalized him?
Oh, boy. No, I don't mind going to him. This is, again, a range where, to me, not going to have a stable of my lineups down here. This is where I opened it up. I felt really comfortable with guys like Poston, with guys like, Griot, maybe a couple others up top. When you get down here and you talk about guys like Harry Higgs, Streelman, Henley, Siwoo Kim, Tringali, names that I'm not staunchly opposed to. I'm not in love with either, and I definitely plan to mix and match as I smooth out the back end of my rosters with these type of guys.
How about Charlie Hoffman?
Oh dear God! Now that's a whole different category of insane. I like him better than Kyle Stanley in this spot. I don't think Kyle Stanley is the right move. Charlie Hoffman has just been bad for a while now. The couple of things that I'll say positive, he scores really well. If he finds the weekend, he's going to pay you off. He can make a lot of birdies. His putter, though, has been awful, and the game is not in great form. But at 7,200, next to guys like Kyle Stanley, Brendan Todd, Ryan Armour, probably still where I would go if I had to pick someone at that specific price tag.
This sounds like Charlie Hoffman, buddy. You ready? Miscut, 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 miscut first. It's just like, I feel like that's what he does. That's what he's done at this course the last 6 years. Obviously, he's in it because of past champion status. I think he's also fine too. I think he was fine in the FedEx Cup last year, but that's just what he was qualified as. Okay, 2 more names in the Make Your Cut segment. And another name that I want to add to your, call it the all driving distance team, I think is a guy to talk about. But Doc Redman is the first guy that I want to talk about. Had a pretty good fall for all intents and purposes. Off the tee has looked good. Is this a good course for him?
No, I don't think it's a good course for him, but I think that this is a guy, and he's shown this, that talent-wise, I don't know if we really know how good he is. And I mean that in a good way, that we may look back and say, wow, can you believe he was in the low 7K range with a guy like Doc Redman? Now, we have a lot to learn in terms of profiling him. I think it's pretty clear that, when you're competing at Quail Hollow, you probably have some talent with your driver. Here, not so much, but you know what? I'd rather back a young guy with an unknown profile over someone where I'm positive that this course doesn't fit their game. With Doc Redman, I don't think that, but I also don't know how good he really is. So I'm more apt to go there than some of these other dudes.
So with that sentiment, there's a great segue. Are you buying into my guy, Woo Brandon Wu?
So I don't know much, if at all, about your boy, Brandon Wu. So that's coming right back to you. Tell the people about the man who came in 17th at the Houston Open.
Yeah, so he lost 3 strokes around the green, which prevented him from getting that elusive top 10. But here's the lowdown about this guy, if you don't know. He's a standout from Stanford, part of that championship winning team. He was the number 1 on that team. His scoring average for the 4 years was impeccable, under 70, just very similar to Colin Morikawa. He made the cut at Pebble Beach, the U.S. Open, came in the top 30 there. Now, I'm not saying that Pebble Beach is the same as El Camaleon, but it's similar in types of it's 7,000 yards. It's more accuracy over distance. And what I liked about Wu, what I saw from Wu, was in his first start against an okay field, he goes out and gains just about 8 strokes ball striking. Then to top that off, we have a couple of weeks off. He obviously can't get into Asia because he doesn't have status. He goes out and co-medalist at the Korn Ferry Tour Q School second stage. So he's got full status there, take some weight off of his shoulders. But we still have 5 more sponsors exemptions here to use. So if we can get a top 10 to get himself another start, he has an outside shot for special temporary membership. I don't think he's as talented as Morikawa and Neiman, but at 6,800, I think he's much more talented than 6,800 shows us. So I'm going to ride it, and I think that this course, again, I don't know much about him, but he's kind of a tiny kid. He's not like a Dustin Johnson 6'5", looks like he can hit the ball a mile, or built like a linebacker like Koepka. He looks similar to Morikawa, maybe a little tinier than Morikawa. So I can't imagine we're going to see him in the top 10 in driving distance. I feel like this could be a good course for him, and certainly a good field for him.
I mean, this is where it's going to open up in terms of who you're not going to find many guys that are you're either going to find guys who are playing bad, coming back from injury, or relatively unknown when we get down here. And I have a couple names that I want to get to. Before I do, real quick, I want to say, as I always do, chat, You guys are the best. We love you hanging out with us. If you can hit the like button, it really helps us out. We got some friends of the show in there. It's great to see everyone. It's going to be a super fun year. I'm really glad everyone's here for swing season. But if you can just press the like button, it helps keep the lights on and really does a lot for the show. So we appreciate it. What
Yeah.
about? Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. No. I was just going to say one more thing that if they're not already an Osmo member, the one thing that I took a look at is they put out all new subscription packages for all sports. If you want to just try us out for 1 week, you'll be able to do that. Also, at the start of the new year, they're going to be coming out with a light package, which gives basically an introductory. It gives the Slack chat, and it gives Ben and Mai's 2 premium articles that we have that, like I said earlier in the show, give away our player pool. So if you're looking to just dip your toes in at the start of next year, you'll have that. And of course, the weekly packages now, just a great way to come in and learn about us. So didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry.
No, that is worth noting. It's really good stuff. And we're going to continue to pump out some really fun things as the season revs up. I wanted to say, you've got guys like Brandon Wu, and it's funny because you're looking at a 1v1 against a guy like Kevin Chappell. I never thought we would see that. Now he's coming back from injury. He's found the weekend a couple times. He hasn't looked great, but I didn't think he would coming back from a long layoff with back surgery. What do you make of him? And obviously, we know he's not a $6,700 player. That's a given. But are you going to go there, or are you going to more take shots with some of the younger guys?
So I'll have some Kevin Chappell. I think that talent from him wise, I think could be one of the better players in the field. Obviously, we don't know what the new normal Kevin Chappell is going to be. We know that he shot 59. We understand that he's still got the ability to score. But I guess my one showing of Brandon Wu at the Houston Open and getting that eight strokes ball striking is if he had pulled the Jordan Spieth and gained 6 strokes putting and lost ball striking, I probably wouldn't want to play him. But the fact that I saw Morikawa type numbers in his first start, gaining that 8 strokes, that has me really more inclined to play Wu. Will I play Chappell? Yes, but I am going to take Wu. Vegas is a guy you mentioned at the top that I wanted to chat with you about for a minute. He's a guy that historically has done very well in soft conditions, lift clean in place. Sticks out to me Zurich's Classic 2.5 years ago. He missed out on that playoff by 1 with Brian Stewart, who's another guy. So talk about Stewart and Johnny Vegas, 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, right, with driving distance versus accuracy, but both seem to play well in these type of conditions. What do you make of that? Anything to look at there?
So Johnny Vegas is somebody that I think is and you can attest to this better than me at the Players. He can get going, I think, anywhere. And he is a bomber, but it's not exclusively for him at long tracks. Sometimes keeping the spraying down is actually the formula. When you get it right with him, you can get paid off in a big way. And that alone, in a field like this, he has that upside that justifies him just on merit alone. I'm not saying that Johnny Vegas is going to have a spectacular week. I'm saying that the upside relative to the other guys in his price range at minuscule ownership put him in play for me. Similar kind of to Austin Cook, not in game, but he's another one where I feel like with this course and where his game is at, I'd actually rather go there than Brian Stewart, who he had a nice run, does it a different way. I just don't know how often you're getting paid off with a massive finish. Maybe you are, but for me, I'll take the savings with some of those guys. And Chad just mentioned Joel Dahman, another decent play, actually. The bucket hat man. I worry about his putting just a bit. I do have one guy, though, I obviously have to ask you about, and it's not going to come as a shock. Who is this young gun from Scotland who's tearing up the Challenge Tour here? Callum Hill? What do you say?
So I want to bring you back to a time a year ago, an exact year ago at this exact tournament. We had this young Spaniard come over from the Challenge Tour. He had just won 6 events in a row. Not that he didn't win, but similar to Callum Hill, who has 6 top threes in his last 11 starts over there or something like that. And the guy's was the name of Adrien Arnoux. We know all about him. He came here in the exact same situation. Honestly, I actually think that this tournament goes out and looks at the number one from the Challenge Tour, which last year was Arnaud and this year I believe was Hill, and they get a sponsor invite. We'll have to see if that holds true next year, because it's interesting that 2 years in a row we see these guys from the Challenge Tour, not even Euro Tour, just the Challenge Tour come over. I don't know much about his game other than he's been playing decent against, minor league European Tour players. It's a big step up. I know he's gotten a lot of buzz from a couple of people in the biz. I fell into the Arnaud trap last year, and he missed the cut. I'm not going to fall into the trap with Hale that much. Maybe a couple hole-in-one shots, as I like to call them. I would rather spend the $200 more and go to Brandon Wu, or I got two names for you. You're going to love these ones. I'd rather go to Henrik Norlander, who hit over 70% of his greens and fairways in Bermuda last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. And then one other guy. This one hurts a little bit more because he's an anomaly when it comes to statistics, and it's Tyler Duncan. He's another guy that I think he hit over 80% of his greens 2 weeks ago in Bermuda. Hit a ton of greens here last year as well. So Tyler Duncan and Norlander, honestly, I would rather play over Callum Hill this weekend.
So Tyler Duncan is a guy that you always think about it. There's a couple guys on tour where I'm like, man, I played them before everybody else did, and then they became good. Then there's a couple other guys that I did that with, and they never became good. Tyler Duncan, I had him at the Safeway way back. It was like his best finish ever a couple of years ago, and he never materialized. Yep. This is the type of track that would suit his game. Now, I don't think you need to go down there too much unless you're really going aggressive up top. Callum Hill, just real quick, and then I'll circle back. From what I have seen, this guy is pretty good. He's tackled a couple of very legitimate Euro fields and played just fine. I have no idea what kind of game he's going to respond with. And for me, there are guys like Adam Long, even Wes Roach that honestly, I think you could lean to. But there's no doubting this is not some bozo who hasn't done like 26 at Alfred Dunhill, 26 at Scottish Open. Those are fields with plenty of legitimate players, not just from Europe, from guys who play on the tour as well. So you can look there. We did have a good question from chat real quick, and we'll get out of here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
What guys in this lower price range would you consider for cash games?
So I took a stand with Wu. I'm not going to lie to you. I just think that the form that he's in right now against this type of field, I think that he easily gets through the cut. I could be dead wrong here. I have been plenty of times. But if this guy is going to go on a similar run to what Morikawa did, I want to be involved in every contest because he's only 6,800. I would look at him. The other guy, if I had to pick one that's super low, we're probably too early for Chris Kirk.
I think for cash, it's a wait and see, to be honest.
Okay. We know he wasn't injured, at least, right? We know he was legitimately just
he had some
drinking problems.
Drinking, and he sorted it out, and it's good to see him back. I just don't know exactly where his game is at. So for me, I would probably stick to Kevin Chappell. Would feel pretty comfortable just because I think he's the best player down here.
Yep.
Sean Stefani, I think, is playing well enough that you could justify it, but for me, cash this week is more of a balanced build. You're talking guys maybe ending in the 7K range and starting a little lower. I don't know how much you need to pay up and then punt someone in cash. It's also not a great cash week, in my opinion. Full disclosure, I'm not even playing cash. My volume is down this week, and it's partly because of that. I think I'm going to rev that back up when we have strokes gain data. But other than that, I would normally, this is where I'd say something stupid about Duffner. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to play him because he's just not playing good golf by any stretch.
How about a GPP flyer, though, that I'd like to just mention is Hank Leviota had a very, very nice week 2 weeks ago, got back into the top 10, threw up 125.5 DraftKings points. He is your pure boom and bust play at 6,600. I'll have a couple of shares there. And then there was one other name. Oh, Matthew Neesmith. His driving accuracy is so good, and he's had so many close calls with getting into the lead and then missing the cut, doing his own form of Keeganing. I'll probably have a couple of shares to try and chase the driving accuracy angle there. And then one other name that I wanted to throw out because why not? I've got Commissioner Gordon from the Batman series, William Gordon. He is a recent grad from Wake Forest who had a scoring average of 69.5 his 4 years at college. Came out as the 9th ranked amateur. He's been playing, he's got about 10 professional starts, 10 or 12, and he's made the cut in 80% of them. He's missed the 2 cuts on the PGA Tour, however. But definitely a name just to keep an eye out for that I had to do a little extra research on. And then when I did, I was kind of interested in him. William Gordon, min price on both sites. It's a hole-in-one throw. Do not play him in the core cash games. He also blew up at the one tournament that he played in over the fall. I think he came in almost close to last. But it's just a name that obviously has some skill. He was competing with Wu and Morikawa and Wolf and Hovland the last couple of years.
So I'll give one of those, and then we can give a hot take and bounce on out. I don't think there's any reason to play this guy, but I want to say that Jimmy Stanger is a name that I have kept an eye on for a while now. And he's got a little experience on tour. Like I said, I don't think there's really a reason to pay all the way down for him, but I expect that he will be a name that we'll all be putting in lineups soon enough.
Yeah, and you know where I'd like to use him actually, if you are interested to play him in either the round 1 or 2 showdown. Ben and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that these Monday qualifiers, obviously to get into the fields, you have to shoot super low in the Monday qualifiers. So obviously they're in pretty good form if they go out and shoot 8 or 9 under on one day. So with that being said, I like to try and use them in showdown so we don't have to worry about them missing the cut. But if they catch fire one of the 2 days, you'll get a good return. So take a look at Jimmy Stanger for a round 1 showdown or round 2 showdown. Round 1, I think there was 1,000 at first, so not bad.
Yeah, it's like I said, last thing I'll say on that, and some of these guys in general, we know in 18 holes that they can get it done. It's 72 holes as I worry. You see them up there, and then before you know it, they came in 58th, and they didn't. Even when you got it right, you didn't get paid off. Yep. And the goal in these, when you're trying to win 50K up top and beat 100,000 people, it's just not going to work. So it's too much risk, not enough reward. And that's really what I'm going to leave it with. And then, like I said, we'll give a hot take. I think this is a week we don't have as much information. We have rain in the forecast. So try to build similar to Showdown NFL with a strategy in mind of how that course is going to play, what's going to matter, and then let the plays kind of funnel from that.
Absolutely. One question. Have you looked at NetBank at all since it's starting in about 4 hours? Looks like some decent contests out there.
Have I?
Who Oosthuizen's at the top of the board, so I don't.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you were just because you pull out golfers that I don't even know they existed, and I'm like, who's starting in 4?
Yeah, my bad. I apologize.
If he gets to the range at like 2 a.m., I may have to look at this guy. Over in Europe, yeah, I'll just say this: it's a very strong field.
Yeah, it is.
Tommy Fleetwood. I tell you what, man, Kurt Kitayama, I know he's getting up there, but very, very good player right now. You've got a lot of big names, McIntyre, EVR. That's really all I have to say. Unlike this tournament, the win equity up top, I feel, is much stronger in Europe. I expect a big name to take that down.
Any low price names? I'll give just one there if you are looking at Kawimura has scored super well the past 3 weeks. Or past 3 tournaments he's been in. I know he came in 46 in Turkey, but still put up over 80 DraftKings points. So if you are looking to stack, say, Oosthuizen and Stenson or Oosthuizen and Van Rooyen, who are both over 10K, look for Kawimura there. I think that could be a good – I used Sean Croker at mid-price last week for that exact type of return and got that. So that's what I'm going to look for Kawimura this week.
Oh, that's good. We're going to use these as our hot take. What do you think? Because I got a guy down there. Unless you have a hot take, but I
got Brandon Wu getting into the top 10. Okay. I got to roll with that.
Okay, fair enough. I have. If you want a cheapie in Europe, look to Aaron Rai. He's someone started off really, really good in Turkey. 68, 67, third round shot of 75, ended up in 44th. But I think we're starting to see the talented Brit really. The dots are connecting, and I have a feeling he starts to really get some more placement points.
First two gloves too. Do you notice that? I don't know if you saw that on the
This
telecast
is
last week,
this
but
is why, chat. This is why you tune into the show, because you're going to hear things certainly that I don't know, and I have a feeling you don't either, and that's what we're all here for. All right, so you got Brandon Wu
yep.
doing some big things.
Yep.
I am going to look for perfect. I'm going to take a guy, I probably have a little better of this, but he's still, I'm going to say that Harry Higgs continues the really good play that we saw in Bermuda and grabs another top 10. He was the runner up there 4 straight rounds in the low 60s. I know it's a stronger field here. This is a guy that I've been impressed with. Now, there's a boom and bust quality, but when you're talking about upside, I don't worry about that with him. I worry about missing the cut and the cut equity. So I'm going to say that Harry Higgs has another really good week here.
I like it. I think it's a good quality play. We know that he's not going to be top 10 in driving distance, which should allow him to utilize both advantage. I mean, last year on the Korn Ferry Tour, he ranked 36th in driving accuracy and 65th in distance. So a great blend of the two, which could end up really well here. So definitely like the Harry Higgs call there.
Like it. Last question, and then we're going to bounce out.
Yeah, let's do
Chinese bad boy, Xingzun Zhang. What do you make? I'll just say this real quick. He wasn't nearly as good in China, but he's playing against incredibly stronger competition than he had seen during the swing season. I have no problem going right back to him in a pretty soft range. I think I like Charlie Hoffman a little more, though, if I'm telling the truth. So one of the plays I could see, but not a priority.
I will tell you, I have written down as I wanted to do in a new segment. I just really quick segment is your top exposure under 8K. And for me this week, it's Brandon Wu and then Xingzun Zhang. I actually really like him this week. His irons have been so good that if he puts the ball in the fairway and gets it in his hand, I think we're in for another big Zhang week.
Okay.
So yeah, and I think I'm gonna guess Higgs is your biggest under 8K this week.
Yep, it would be Higgs and probably either Chappell or Russell Henley. Those are guys that I feel pretty comfortable with.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a pretty good spot to end on.
All right.
As Ben said a little earlier, thanks for everybody for joining. Hit that like button. And what do we got next week?
We got, RSM. So we got another swing season event. We will be back same time. A really good one, too. So we encourage everyone to come back then. And then, we're going to have some off weeks, but me and Jason are definitely going to be talking about getting some creative things in the offseason. We want the feedback. We appreciate it. And then we'll be back ready to roll once the real season gets started. So everyone, we're going to duck on out of here. Again, thanks so much. Hope to see you all in Slack. Find us on Twitter if you have any questions, and we'll be back next week with the RSM Classic. Good luck.